free resources that are available for people, and we'll be looking at some other resources that we'll be offering soon that are paid. But let's start with intros and saying who we are and why we are here today. So I'm Jessica Levesque. I'm the Executive Director at C4, and we're really excited to have our committee members here today. And surprise, we have a new committee member. So let's start with intros. We'll go around and then we'll start with our newest addition. So Cheyenne, would you start by introducing yourself, please?
Sure. Hey everyone, I'm Cheyenne. I'm currently CTO at Ether Capital and also the chair committee for CEP. Happy to be here.
Thank you. Kent?
Hey there, friends. I'm Kent. I am the tokenomics workstream leader at Shapeshift and also currently serving proudly on with C4 on the CEP. I've been a long-time believer in education around Ethereum. So very excited to drop some more knowledge today.
Awesome. Sonal, would you do a quick intro?
Yes. Hello, everyone. I'm Sonal, and I lead operations for Consensus Mesh's Research and Development Unit. I'm a little newer to the CEP committee, but I've been really enjoying it and learning a lot from our members and committee members here.
Is this your second live stream, Sonal?
Yes.
Okay, cool. And then our latest addition is Dustin. Dustin, would you quickly say who you are? What do you do?
Hi, I'm Dustin. I work at the Ethereum Foundation, and I work with the ecosystem development team. So essentially what we try to do is get people building on Ethereum and using Ethereum.
Very cool. And Sonal and I met through the Enterprise Ethereum Alliance, and that's also how we met. I'm not sure, Sonal, if you knew Dustin before that, but that's how I met Dustin as well. And the three of us were geeking out on a call about education stuff. So it's perfect to have people who also love talking about how to educate people and where to find resources on our committee, and also for what we are talking about today. So one of the wonderful things about Ethereum is that there is a lot of information about it out there in the world. There's constantly new tweets happening, new resources popping up, new websites, all this new content. But one of the challenges is for most of us to figure out what is credible, what isn't, what is up to date, what is expensive, inexpensive, and kind of where to go. And so we wanted to talk about what are some of the resources that I'm not on the committee, but our committee members and anybody that works with C4 use in order to make sure that we're staying up to date and pass that knowledge on to you as listeners so that you're able to do the same thing. So let's just start by talking about some of the resources that we have at C4. One of our really good intro videos is from Kent. So Kent, would you explain about this video?
Sure, Jessica. So yeah, this video is a couple years old, but luckily I designed it to be pretty evergreen, which is kind of tricky in crypto because things are always changing. But it sort of reflects the fact that the fundamentals of Ethereum really haven't changed and probably won't change. So in terms of like at a high level, what is it? How does it differ from Bitcoin? What sort of functionality do smart contracts bring about? Like, what can you do with all this stuff? And sort of that high level overview, also digging into some use cases, which in the intervening years have gotten a lot more interesting and complex, but you get a good sense kind of for what's possible. I think just a good way to start going down that rabbit hole. Once you start falling down the rabbit hole, I think your momentum will accelerate. You want to learn more. But that video is called Ethereum Explained, and that was at the C4 conference. I think the summer before COVID, 2019.
Yeah, that is the summer. Yes, summer before everything, everything as we know it ended for a while. But one of the things I really liked about this session is I think at the beginning, Kent, you talk about how like you needed to add memes to your presentation. Like you noticed like you didn't have any and you put some in, and just like it's a really interesting way to get into it. And I like that it's a live talk at a conference. So it's really engaging for anybody that struggles watching online content. People like me, I'm much more of a reader than I am a watcher, but it is a really good video that I think would be helpful for anybody that's new to Ethereum. And then for those who are maybe more seasoned or they have more of a developer angle, Cheyenne has a video as well from the conference. Cheyenne, do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, sure. So that video is similar to what Kent was mentioning. Yeah, it's kind of timeless. There are like code samples in there that might be old, but the conversation is more on security by design. Like a lot of times it's more for people that are Web2 developers that are coming to Web3 and some of the mental models that needs to be changed as how you secure passwords or how do you store data that is like private and how you can design systems or smart contracts in a way that in traditional web development is pretty simple, but it gets tricky. So for anyone that is a developer, hasn't touched Solidity or smart contract or blockchain in overall, it's a good intro into how blockchain works, what is mempool, how transaction workflow works, and especially if you want high speed or oracles or things that are you hear here and there. And it's a good intro talk on how to use them, what that means, what not to do as like the common mistakes that people do. And I think I did a slightly updated version at ETH Portland last year, but it's almost the same content that you can go through. Maybe some of the Oracle code has changed, but not necessarily that much.
Yeah, cool. Thank you for that. One of the cool things about our conference, I think, as an educator, was that everyone who spoke at this conference in 2019 was someone who is engaging as a speaker and really cared about the educational side of things. And we will be doing a new conference some point in 2023. We haven't announced it yet, when or where, but that is something that we're looking into doing so that we're going to have some fresh content that is in person as well. So we also have a lot of other videos on our YouTube channel, a lot of the ones that we have done as a committee. So we've got stuff on the Ethereum merge. We're going to talk about that in a little bit, but if you want to hear the precursor to it, there's 2 videos on our YouTube channel. And we also have a bunch of other videos about Ethereum, but we also have videos on Bitcoin and key management and a bunch of other stuff. So search through there and find what you'd like to learn about. But also, we are not the only ones out there who are creating educational content, obviously. And there are a lot of other good resources that we can look at. So in addition to what C4 has, there are other companies, organizations that we think you should know about. So let's talk about what we as Ethereum lovers use to learn more about it. Who wants to go first?
I think we can start with Dustin and Ethereum.org, get around that, and then move to like the site, because I think that also has a lot of links to other places. If that's okay, I know like I'm putting Dustin on the spotlight. But
well, if he doesn't want to talk about it, we all will, because I love Ethereum.org. I was just reading it this morning, so I think we're all big fans.
There's also a very adorable panda now right up front, now that the merge is done. Love it.
I have to say, like watching what the team does on the back end, like they are frequently like updating it all the time. Essentially, even before the merge went in, they had like an entire sprint of all the content they were putting in there to basically educate people about what the merge is. And I think that it helps that after the merge has happened, a lot of it is what's next is going to be a big part of the push. So like after the merge, what are we going to do? EIP 4844. And I think Ethereum.org is a great resource.
Can we back up and explain why there's a panda? And some of us were like, ooh, panda, and what that means. Because if you're watching this, you might be like, so pandas, how are they involved? Would someone explain why that is a thing? Because if you've been around, you've seen it. But if you're new, you might be wondering why we're a bit kooky.
So does anyone know where the original pandas came from? So this is a Dragon Ball meme where basically they got a similar thing where like 2 Dragon Ball characters like merged together, and literally the subtitles for that is actually called a merge as well. So it was a Dragon Ball meme that became a panda meme where like Black Panda combines with Black Bear combines with White Bear, you get a panda.
Okay, interesting. Where was everybody before we get into like exactly what the merge is? I'd like to hear where everyone, well, actually, no, sorry, I'm jumping ahead. We'll talk about the merge later.
Yeah.
I like can't wait. I need to control myself. Okay, so let's talk about, if you go to ethereum.org, there are a lot of ways to like quickly jump into the content. So there's like a get started where it goes through everything. It talks about how to pick a wallet, get ETH using a dApp. Anything else, Dustin, that you think we should know about with the ethereum.org page?
Yeah, you're mute.
Oh yeah, you're muted.
I think with the ethereum.org page, I think for some people, they don't necessarily want to go in and learn foundational knowledge immediately. And I think the first interface that a lot of people start with is a wallet, because they're coming in because they want to buy an NFT or something like that. So the ethereum.org wallets page is really good. It's just got a brand new like facelift. And what the facelift has done is like it's kind of come up with presets of what you're looking for in a wallet. So you can choose a preset and it'll tell you what's available, and it allows you to filter all of the wallets that are available in the landscape. And you can filter it by, can I buy crypto in wallet itself? Does it support hardware wallets? And you can basically filter it down so that it just lists exactly the wallets that meet the attributes that you're looking for. I think that's a really great interface for finding a wallet because there's so many out there.
That is really cool. I didn't even know that. Has
page.
anyone done that?
No, that's really cool. I just noticed that. Like the thing is, one thing I want to add for ethereum.org is one of the only websites that is translated into more than like 20, 30 languages. I don't know the exact number, but I remember like 2-3 years ago, I participated with a group of people that basically did the Farsi version of ethereum.org. And we've done that with a lot of other projects, but ethereum.org was like so welcoming and like included that. There was like a lot of right to left issues that were like fixed early on. I say like still like that Farsi version a lot more relevant, but like, it's 2-3 years old. I mean, Ethereum time, that's like more than a decade. So like we need, if anyone's listening to this and they know English and Farsi, it's all open source. You can go start actually translating them to like be more related, or any other language that you speak. Because I feel like a lot of these conversations, even people that are natively English, a lot of times we talk about Ethereum sounds like jargons and like it's hard to understand. So imagine how it is for non-English speaking people. So if you are knowledgeable here, go for that. Like just try to translate them into your language and get more people involved with that by just putting the content out there. That's one of the things I early on really loved about Ethereum.org too.
One of the really interesting things about that is like so much of the languages are like community translated, and we've even got like a great interface for people to do translations in. An interesting snippet about translation is that rollups in Chinese, they're just not called rollups. You could just call them rollups, but they actually name them after spring rolls. So the rollups in Chinese are named after food.
That's interesting. I like that we're bringing up the translation piece because, like you said, Cheyenne, Ethereum is universal and it should be universal. And if it's not being shared in multiple languages, then it's not actually going to be universal, because we all know that just because we're talking in English doesn't mean everybody speaks English. And so making sure that there is content in many languages that's available to as many people as possible is awesome. At C4, this is something that matters to us too. And we are working on doing more translations, but we have translated the CEP exam into Spanish, and it will be released at DevCon, which we'll be talking about that a little bit too. But but for many, many languages, ethereum.org's content is awesome. And I love that it's from the community that's translating it. I think that's really important as well. So let's keep talking about additional resources that are out there. What about some other, we'll get into some more technical ones in a minute, but what other ones are out there? Sonal, do you want to jump in?
Yes. So as most of you know, Jessica and I are co-chairs for the ETHTQ work group in the EEA, but the EEA also started releasing primers. We'll paste the link in our chat. But I've actually been using these to send to people outside of the ecosystem lately, family members, or kind of like industry leaders that I'm talking to about the tech or things I focus on, but without getting too into Web3 or Ethereum. So I'm kind of using it as like the first resource I send to people if I know it's probably the first conversation they're having about using the technology, and I don't want to send them somewhere that might seem uncredible, or you don't want to take the risk of something being shilled somewhere and they have to do a double take and wonder what your intentions were. So I've been using these primers as a 1 to 2 page resource on that topic. There's ones about DeFi, just basic Ethereum, layer 2s, DAOs. So I found those a very useful resource. And then a lot of times I've even found that people who have used this have used ethereum.org to do deeper dives, because you can always kind of go back to that as like a source of truth on information related to Ethereum. You could find yourself on there for hours just learning more. And it's just great because they kind of get back to ethereum.org, of course, but they give like a full picture on like the basic answer to whatever you were searching when you came there, but then all sorts of resources and links to other pages, products and services. So I kind of use it as my one-stop shop, and then these primers as a very basic resource.
Cool, thank you. Yeah, it's I think really important when you find a place that you feel comfortable looking for information on, and you know that you can keep accessing it and you can trust it. That's a good way to share it with others as well. If it's something that you found easy to absorb, then hopefully if you're thinking through it as like a beginner, that you can help others that are beginners be able to think through it in the same way that you did with this content. Let's talk about some more technical. Well, actually, does anyone else have any other resources they want to point out first? I guess I have a few too. I keep cutting myself off today with what we're talking about on the agenda. I clearly want to talk about the merge, and I need to like slow my roll a little bit on this. But so Andreas Antonopoulos has a ton of free videos as well. What other, I'll put his site in there, but who else on YouTube has free videos that you all watch and have found helpful?
So I feel like if you focus on protocols or what scope you're looking for, there are a lot. Like even for, let's say it gets technical, but if you want to learn Solidity, there are like videos online there. There is like one of the best places I usually put like direct people to go to is this website called Speedrun Ethereum, which is based on Scaffold ETH. I'll send the link here so we can share it. And Scaffold ETH does one. So how it does is like they're all related to another project similar to like all these called Crypto Zombie, which all gamify coding, like gamify learning. And I really like about that because it gets more exciting than like to learn what is a variable. Rather than with that, you have to define a zombie that has like 2 eyes and 1 nose, which is like interesting way of like getting to like actual objects and like how object-oriented programming is. But Speedrun Ethereum is more jumping into DeFi modules, and like if you want to learn how to write a small contract that does some trading, you don't even need to know how Uniswap works. You can just figure out how to put these pieces together and it does trading. Just a disclaimer that do not do this waste of putting money on it and instead want to trade, like learn about the round surrounding it, what is required, because it's also like Ethereum and blockchain overall are running in a public or adversarial environment. So you have to know what you're doing, but you can learn the coding, you can learn how to like put them together, run on testnets, run on other blockchains if you want to on more smaller scale before getting into like more crazy amount of trading. But like Speedrun Ethereum is really good to like figure out how to put these pieces together. And
I'm glad. Can I just jump in real quick? I'm glad
Sure.
you brought that up because we are going to be having someone from Speedrun Ethereum's team join us in a couple weeks for a live stream to talk specifically about what they do. So we'll be announcing that in the next couple of days, but we're going to have someone from that. And this ties into something else somebody wanted to bring up, which is Austin Griffith's Build Guild, Biddle. I can't remember which one it is, but some of his content is being taught by Growick, who is also, and they're teaching Solidity, and they're going to be on that live stream as well. So stay tuned for the announcement of that. But anyways, Cheyenne, I didn't mean to cut you off. I think you were going to bring up another resource as
Yeah,
well.
I just added the link for that build one that you were saying. It's actually pretty good because it's drag and drop. So you basically have this grid and you can drag and drop like address generation and connecting to that to like a Uniswap trade and connect like it's almost no coding, small contract coding, or development, which is like pretty cool to like learn how these pieces come together, and you can almost create a whole system with it as well. Like, but still like make sure you read the code auditing and all things around that, which is a good segue for me. Like my background is more security. I'm more focused on that. Worked as a smart contract auditor for 3 years, and a lot of resources that also people find interesting are capture the flag. So like projects that you have to hack a project to like learn. And I learned most of the things on Solidity from a few websites, like Capture the Ether is one. There is another one that is pretty new, year old, called Vulnerable DeFi. These are interesting because all these hacks you hear, sometimes you feel like it's actually a hacker in the basement with a hoodie, like hacking, but then you learn about the hack and you realize it's just, if you read the code, it was obvious. It was obviously like an issue there. You could just write the code to use that. So these also, gamification of security is pretty good resource for people that don't necessarily want to learn coding from basics to advanced. They just want to jump in and start doing things, which later on we could use that as skills to do bug bounties and some other like websites to use and have income and fun at the same time.
Yeah, there's so many. So just so everyone knows, we've got a bunch of different things popping up on our chat on Zoom that we're going to be sharing about. So I'm trying to keep up with it, but I see there's some others added. Dustin, if you want to jump in and start talking about the ones you've added into the chat now.
Sure. I mean, we're on a trend where we're talking about Austin Griffith's work, and I think that one of the things that he does is that he doesn't just do it from zero. So Speedrun Ethereum and like a lot of the things that he does are like learning from basics, but he's also got something on his GitHub, which is if you search like Austin Griffiths on GitHub, you find like Web 2 to Web 3 curriculum, and basically that starts with the assumption that you already understand how to code, and then it kind of gets you from the starting point, so you don't get bored like going through basics of programming, and you can work on that, and it gets you from Web 3 to Web 2 to Web 3 in a accelerated fashion.
Sorry, I was having problems unmuting myself. Yeah, I think that it's important to talk about this stuff from like what we're doing here is kind of like beginner newbie all the way to when you're actually ready to start creating, and where you can go to learn how to do that from people that are trusted good teachers.
I just wanted to throw a
Okay.
teaser in there
Yeah.
too. Jessica, you mentioned the CEP exam. So we have a CEP guide that'll be coming out probably concurrently at DevCon with the both the Spanish version of the CEP. Of course, the CEP exists right now, but this is designed to really teach you everything you need to know at a fairly non-technical level, because like CEP does not get into the intricacies of like Solidity and stuff like that. You don't have to be an engineer or developer to grok this stuff. So it's not quite out yet, but once it is, we really did, we're crafting this to be a very nice, gentle introduction into all things Ethereum.
Yeah, so we're going to be releasing it on October 10th. So it will be out by DevCon. It's just we're also releasing the exam in Spanish, but the prep book for now is just in English, but we will eventually get that translated as well into Spanish. But we're also going to be giving DevCon scholars access to our book and the exam to help prepare them for DevCon. So they'll be getting access to it too. But one of the things I wanted to bring up about the book, if you've been watching for a while, there have been a lot of people asking about this. It's like the Ethereum exam is more difficult than the Bitcoin exam. And therefore having this prep book has been something that a lot of people are really interested in having. One of the challenges for our committee and our team in creating this is that Ethereum moves quickly. That is obviously a huge part of what makes it amazing, but it is also challenging as volunteers to be able to keep up with everything that is happening and put it into the book. So I'm pretty proud of us for being able to get to this point and keeping up and making the changes. Obviously, choosing to do this around the time of the merge is interesting. The exam has been updated, but the book as well is something that we started it and we've had to make changes and we're continuing to finalize it. But I think it's really good. I'm excited about it. I think that our committee members have done an amazing job with it. And I think once it is finally pushed out, and I guess it's like 2.5 weeks, that everyone who's been waiting for it is going to be pleased with it. And the next step will be creating a course for it as well. Instead of just having it in written form, having it also in video form, because we all know that people learn differently. So anything else you want to say about the book, Kent, because you're kind of like the champion of it, you're doing a lot of the writing?
Yeah, just to use one example of how we kind of have to be very reactive to what's happening. You know, it's like we dug in, we started this thing. We know the merge is coming in the future, but we were still writing about proof of stake or proof of work in the present tense, because as we're writing, it's like, okay, this is still the consensus mechanism. Of course, is relevant to our chat today, but you know, now we have to. It's done happily, so we have to kind of go back and tweak that. So it really is challenging to like keep it both evergreen and kind of like, I think in the future we'll have to be doing updates periodically. It really is a contrast to the Bitcoin space, which you know, they sort of structure it to be very slow moving. That's their ethos, you know, for better or for worse, that's what they do. And Ethereum, it's more like, let's move fairly fast. So, you know, it won't be too much longer before we have to talk about things like proto-dank sharding or whatever that winds up being named. And also, like, it's kind of a challenge in terms of like, okay, how do we address like scaling in the exam? Things like rollups, which are actually in production now. How do we approach that? Again, without getting too technical. So I kind of view this as like a living document. It's really exciting to be approaching the finish line on this. Jessica has done an incredible job really structuring this and putting it together, and it's been fun to, you know, collaborate on that. But I think since Ethereum changes relatively quickly, the document itself and the test will have some tweaks as well.
Yeah, the test we've actually, I mean, you all know this, but for those watching, we've updated it along the way. There have already been changes. We've gone through and looked to see what is in there about proof of work and proof of stake, and that has already been done, but we will continue to be going through it. We're also going to be releasing, well, not releasing, but having the Ethereum community help us add additional questions to the exam. So now that it's been updated, and once we release this prep book, we're going to start having community members help us with suggesting different questions that we can add to it, because we recognize that the best type of content, exams, anything, comes from multiple people. And even though we have a committee of people that have come together to put everything into one place, we do want to hear from other people that are in the community as well and what they're thinking in terms of what's important and what matters. One more thing on that with the book and some of our materials. Some of us will be at DevCon this year. Who's going to be at DevCon? We're going to raise our hands. Old school. Okay, so everyone on the call is. So for anyone listening that isn't familiar with DevCon, can someone do I haven't been before, so I don't think I'm the right person to talk about it, but someone who's gone, can you explain what it is like and why everyone here thinks it's important to go?
So I can try, and then maybe you can add some spice to it. So it's the place to be if you're in working on Ethereum, protocols around it, any of the future scaling issues, or because the whole team, like all the teams that work on Ethereum will be there. Like so also there are like all the talks would be live streamed. You can watch them. You can also do, if you can make it to Colombia, I really suggest doing the local meetup style, hanging out and watching the talks and discuss around that, because one of the main benefits of like being at DevCon for me has been the socializing and the networking around it. And a lot of times I started working on projects just because I was overhearing someone talking about this, and I started the conversation, and then we ended up doing a project together, which is like really nice. And And I don't remember, but even like the whole C4 engagement with a lot of these conversations maybe started like somewhere there with like butterfly effects, right? Like we don't even know. But I really suggest like watching the talks, the surrounding. If you're in Colombia or Latin America, even join, if you don't come to conference, join in the meetups, the events around us. And yeah, I'm looking forward to see like what this year has in the basket for us. Like my talk got rejected, so I won't be talking, but there's going to be interesting events happening. I hope it's good. Like so far, one of my favorite has been like Japan and Prague, but we'll see if this would become like the next favorite one or not.
Yeah. Dustin, do you want to perhaps discuss who hosts DevCon?
DevCon is hosted by the DevCon team. So what they do is that it's a large production. Essentially, we had DevConnect earlier this year in April, and DevConnect was an attempt at a different kind of format because COVID restrictions started lifting, and the idea of like waiting, a pretty long time to, October for DevCon was like let's try to do something before then. So DevConnect was a new format that DevCon came up with, which is essentially providing the place, providing the location, and then everyone shows up there. And what the DevCon team did was set up the infrastructure so that the teams just came down and presented. So the teams didn't have to do event production to be able to like drive content. So the DevConnect was in April this year, and then DevCon is coming up in October. So that was an interesting attempt at a slightly different format. And what I liked about DevConnect as well was that talks really went in very deep depth there, just because the teams were kind of like competing with each other in terms of content. So I found that really fascinating, and I'm really interested to see like both from DevCon and DevConnect, the different kinds of like content that will be coming up on both sides. But I'm really looking forward to DevCon this year as well, because it's in Colombia. Bringing it to LATAM would be really fascinating to see all of the LATAM communities and what they bring to the table. Finding out how we can help solve any local issues using Ethereum. So having DevCon scholars, like 40%, more than 40% of them are from LATAM as well. So really interested in meeting the DevCon scholars, and like they've got some really interesting scholars.
Yeah, I'm excited to meet some of them too. Like I said, we're donating our exam to the scholars and the prep book, even though it's only available in English now, but they will have access to that. And then also I'm excited for, I've never been to Bogota, so I think that's going to be cool. And then also we are at C4 doing part of a community hub. So the community hub is called Women Leaders in Web3. And we're going to be there every day from 11:30 to 12:30 Bogota time doing trivia on Ethereum in both English and Spanish. And we'll have giveaways there, and it should be really fun. So stop by. You'll probably see some of our committee members, you'll see our volunteers, and come and learn about Ethereum and get educated in a fun way. So we hope to see everyone there. Anybody been to Bogota before? No? Who's been to a DevCon in the past? Everyone but me and Sonal? Okay, cool. Any advice for newbies who are going to the conference?
Pace yourself. It's a crazy week.
Pace yourself.
You got
Pace
the
yourself.
conference, and then there's always, like Cheyenne was alluding to, and Dustin, you have the events afterwards, and that gets crazy. So yeah, don't go super hard like the first night. It's just kind of it's a marathon, not a race. And be prepared to just be like living in this wonderful alternate reality where you're connected with like so many like-minded people, and it's almost like surreal at times. It's so cool.
Yeah, stay hydrated, like make sure you eat well, because like you end up sometimes like not eating well and start drinking at the Eastside event. As Kent was saying, like it was interesting that like it depends on the DevCon and timeline. Like at the DevCon 3, which was like the peak of the ICO bull run, I remember the first day was so overwhelming, so busy, and then second day almost the population that would come into the conference half. And the third day was like 1/3 of the rest coming, because they realized they can watch the live stream from the bars nearby rather than coming in. And a lot of people were just hungover not to show up. So find like the talks that beforehand find the talks that you want to attend and like make sure you have them on your calendar and like properly plan for them. But it's going to be overwhelming. So make sure you're ready for that mentally. And yes, stay hydrated. That's one of the things I learned in one of the DEF CON, like how to actually manage my water supply while walking around.
Those are good
so
tips. Oh, go ahead, Dustin.
Yeah, so that's exactly what I told the scholars as well. I think that time management is actually an underrated part of like attending a conference. And I think that you're saying pace yourself, watch your hydration, almost as if you're going on a drug-fueled bender. But it kind of is, because it's like for your brain. You'll be hearing lots of people speaking about like you're talking to the people at the cutting edge, and then you'll be having conversations about things that, they're still being written, they're still being debated, they're still being worked on. So that access is rare. And I think that there's a balance to strike sometimes with the talks. The talks are sometimes really interesting, but if you know that it's being live streamed, you can, I'm not saying that you should walk out of the talks, but if you know it's being live streamed, you can probably watch it again later. And maybe there's a conversation or a person that may be a co-founder, maybe someone that you talk to. So I actually spend a lot of time in the hallway track, and talking to people and connecting, because sometimes the people that you meet at the talk are as interesting as the talk itself, because they were all drawn by that topic. So that's another thing as well.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Like, just, it's hard, I think, if you haven't done it before and aren't comfortable with it, but just starting a conversation with somebody who happens to be sitting next to you at a talk, or that you're walking by, it could turn out to be someone that is fascinating, that you have a lot in common with, or that you could learn from. And so I always say, like, one of our board members, Pamela Morgan, is amazing at networking and talking to people. And whenever I go to a conference or someplace that I feel like I need to get into like the space to feel comfortable talking to people I don't know and making connections, I always think, like, what would Pamela do? Because she's very like, hi, I'm Pam, or, like, just runs up to people. And so I always think, like, okay, do that, because if you put yourself in that position, you're more likely to get more out of a event that you go to, for sure.
One more point in terms of hydration. This is like especially important in Bogota. Bogota's altitude is like 8,600 feet. So I'm an ETH Denver steward as well. And every year we encounter people who come up from sea level to Denver altitude, which is a mile high, 5,280. It's not as high as Bogota, but even then, sometimes people have issues, especially if they're drinking. Take it much slower than you normally would if you're drinking, and definitely hydrate yourself, because that altitude definitely kind of makes a big difference. And it probably will take you a couple of days to get acclimated as well.
Yes, and I haven't gone to a DEF CON event yet. I hosted an event that my team went to for Dev Connect in Amsterdam. I was not on ground, but I went to Consensus and NFT NYC recently, and I realized I really needed a personal plan for remembering who I meet, because I know some people have all sorts of methods, whether it's the QR code on LinkedIn, or I saw something new, which was like taking our selfie and sending it on Telegram. And personally, that didn't work for me. I'm just like, I still don't remember who you were 3 days later and hundreds of people later. So I think having your method is ideal. Like for me, I just like screenshot the LinkedIn, because I'm like, I need to tie it back to the platform I use to contact people later. But I think that's important, because you could miss like one day of doing that, and like the hundreds of people you met and like the few really valuable ones to your needs, you kind of just lost them or lost track of them. So that's another angle that could get exhausting if you don't just think about how you want to do it.
Yeah,
So
like preparing for those things.
Mm-hmm.
So one thing I've done is I've created a QR code that like gives people context on every possible platform. So because some people like use WeChat, especially if you're based in China, or they use Telegram, or some people are security conscious and they use like Signal or Wire. So basically, I've got a QR code that gives them context, all of those, and then I do the selfie as well. But what I also do is I write how we met, what we're interested in talking about, like in the future, and that kind of like helps me recontextualize everyone that I've met.
That's great.
Yeah, those are super helpful. Okay, for the last bit, should we talk about the merge? Since I've been trying to talk about it all day because I can't stop myself. Because I haven't been on a chat yet with people to talk about it like this. So I'm excited. maybe we can just do a brief rundown of what the merge is, or was, and why it matters. So who can give a general just info about what we're talking about? Kent, do you want to jump in?
Sure. So yeah, at a very high level, basically what happened with the merge is what was the current consensus mechanism, which provides security for the network and enables it to be this sort of wonderful trustless, permissionless network supported by people all over the world. Previously, it was based on mining, which was sort of basically, since Ethereum's inception, it was based on mining, which borrowed a page from Bitcoin. There are Bitcoin miners. Ethereum mining was different. It used GPUs instead of specialized chips. Hence, you saw like graphics cards getting really expensive. Anyway, long story short, this was the result of like many years of planning. The switch away from mining was actually in the roadmap since pretty much Ethereum's inception. The merge finally happened last week, and what this was basically the network moved over to this proof of stake consensus mechanism. So something called the beacon chain is now providing consensus and security for the network, whereas before it was miners. This was very tricky because it's sort of like, the common analogy was like changing a plane's engine mid-flight, because this network is live and securing billions in value. Luckily, it went very smoothly. So now Ethereum is a proof of stake network. This has implications for the decentralization of the network, its security, also its energy use, something that's like 99.9% less than proof of work. So, better for the planet, unequivocally. It gets more technical from there in terms of like execution layers and consensus layers, but and also multiple client implementations. But the good news is we're there. The merge has happened, and it's now a proof of stake network.
Yeah, one thing I want to add to the energy use, which I love, is so right after the merge, it took 12 seconds basically for the switch. Like it took a year, like a few years of the work, but it took 12 seconds that it reduced the global energy cost by 0.2%. And that is insane just to think about it. Like what other technology upgrade or what other organization has done any change like this? I don't know any. Like usually it goes with like paying for more of the carbon emission like fees rather than reducing the cost. And 0.2% of the global energy cost being reduced with one software update. I'm kind of saying it's not one software, it's so much bigger, but it's insane just to think about it. It's fascinating. Yeah, and like I'm excited. I ordered the t-shirt. Like in the last 3 months, I've been talking about merge so much. So right now I ordered the t-shirt and I'm excited to get it there. I designed something called merge. So yesterday, talk to me about the surge. And because the next phases are like also coming, and merge was the first step of many more changes to come, which I'm excited to see.
Wait, where's this t-shirt from? Did you design it?
Yeah, I designed it. I'll let you know if it's good, and I'll bring more. I just order more from DevCon.
I like your t-shirts, Cheyenne.
We're collecting them in Bogota.
Yeah.
Yeah, we will. Let's all wear them. Cheyenne has another t-shirt that is about a podcast he has, and it's like one of my all-time favorite t-shirts now. I got it like a month ago and I wear it all the time. It's got and I'll wear it on maybe our next live stream. It's got an astronaut on it, and then it's got the different crypto logos, and then it says in Farsi what the name of the podcast, which I can't remember. Cheyenne?
Yeah, it's called Studio Hat. Yeah, one thing I want to say at the end of this call, but I guess now it might be a time because we talk about this podcast, just for the raising awareness. Like right now in Iran, internet is almost down because there is a protest going on due to some government corruptions. And I just wanted to say, like, if you don't know anything about this, Google Iran protest or Mahsa Amini, which is a girl which died in this process, and like that's why all the Iranians are in the streets, and the internet is down, so there might be some shutdown and basically blackout on the information. Just raising awareness, like anyone listening Google, learn more about what's happening in the world, which is, it's sad, and hopefully people are going to be safe at the end.
Yeah, thank you for talking about that and bringing awareness. It's super important to make sure people know what is going on and to be able to hopefully also be advocates for real people who are impacted by this. Okay, so I would love to hear about where everyone was during the merge. Was anyone like at a party? Was anyone like me up all night alone in a hotel room in New York and like could not sleep because I couldn't control myself to keep checking things? I kept being like, okay, this is it. I'm going to bed. And then it did not happen. And I was on a virtual conference the next day. And I was so tired that I put my background opposite on my screen because I couldn't like focus on it because I was up all night because of it. So what was everyone else doing?
I was on the couch getting sleepy because it happened at about like 1 o'clock ish in Denver. And yeah, it kept getting pushed out a little bit because hash power was dropping off and it was tied to the total difficulty, not a specific block. So it was like, all right, are we there yet? But then it happened. It was like, okay, seems pretty good so far. I'm looking at Twitter and then making sure all the devs say everything is cool and the client guys. And yeah, it was fun.
I was on Twitter too, and it was 3 a.m. for me in New York City, and I couldn't stop myself. What about everyone else? Dustin, didn't you send a picture of where you were for it with a bunch of people? Was that for the merge?
Yeah, I can share the picture. Should I share screen and show what the picture looks like?
Yeah, sure. If you have access to sharing the screen, I don't know if you do. Yeah, please. We can also put it on our Twitter as well.
I do not have access.
Oh, I can just make, yeah, you should be able to do that.
Oh, you're muted, Dustin.
This one of those times where I'm going to be awkwardly figuring out how to do it. No, I can't do it because I've got to set my permissions. Don't worry about it. So, yeah, I was
Well, we'll
doing
put
the
it on
merge
Twitter.
party. Yeah, we can do that. So, I was organizing, or I was part of the team organizing the merge party in Singapore. Basically, the Singapore Ethereum community did a merge watch party, and the timing kind of shifted. So, we planned to start at 10 p.m. at night and then like stay overnight until whenever it merged, and it was forecasted to be at like 9 in the morning. But as we got there at 10, it started to be like, oh, it's more likely going to be 3 in the afternoon. But there were people there at 10 at night because they couldn't make it the next day because they were working. And it was quite interesting. It was like almost a whole different set of people. We had like 60 people at night, and they were staying late and they're just talking. They're just excited about what they were building. And the next day it was maybe 70 to 80 people, and it's almost completely different set of people. So we kind of had 2 merge parties, and then there was one merge party where the merge actually happened. And we were also with Aya from the Ethereum Foundation. She was there. She was on the call with the Bankless team. So she had the call with like the Singapore community in the background. So that was quite nice.
Yeah, for me, it was also similar to, because I'm in Toronto and the time zone was around 3 or 4 a.m. But it's interesting that I was not necessarily like stressed at first, but early at night, I was going for a walk with my partner, and she was asking, would it say okay to say if merge fails tonight, you might not have a job tomorrow? And at first I laughed, but then I realized, well, our company called Ether Capital. My whole life existence is like working on Ether, and we're staking 20,000 ETH. So I was like imagining if the merge fails and the whole thing fails, what would happen? And I was like, maybe she's right. So I was getting more stressed and stressed, getting close to the merge. But then after it happened, checking on Twitter and other places, I was like, okay, let's sleep now. It was an interesting question. I was like, I don't think that's true, but at the same time, I can't say it's not true. It's not true. Because if merge failed, it would have been taken some time to recover from that. And I'm glad it was.
Yeah,
successful.
that's interesting. You're the CEO founder of Ether Capital was at the conference that I was at, and he spoke, I think, the day before the merge,
before
and
the
it
merge.
was interesting to hear him. It was a great talk that he gave. So, but I'm glad you're still here. Yeah, Brian Mosa. How do you say his last name? Mosaf? Mosaf?
Mosaf, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, well, we are getting, here's Dustin's photo, and I just tweeted it too.
That looks fun.
It does look fun.
Yeah.
And it's got the panda. That's one of the things I love about this space, is that it really is fun. Like, everyone in it is about education, learning, changing the world, and then also like having a good time doing it.
Sort of got
Keep
the
it
Badger
weird.
dance energy here. Love it.
Yeah, keep Ethereum weird.
Keep Ethereum
Cool.
weird,
Okay, well, we've talked about resources today that we have that are free. Also, that our Ethereum prep book is going to be coming out on October 10th, which we're really excited about. We're going to be at DevCon doing trivia in English and Spanish about Ethereum, because our prep book is also coming out, or our exam is also coming out in Spanish for Ethereum. And then we'll be doing the Ethereum prep book as well in Spanish eventually. So let's see here. Anything else anyone wanted to address before we sign off for today?
Bring either an empty suitcase or something for the swag. That's gonna be a problem at the end. Like, I mean, Japan, I remember we had to leave like 2 big bags like back behind, because we were like, we can't really take them back with us.
That's a good piece of advice. I feel like I need to go through my crypto wardrobe and start to pick and choose some of the items that I don't need to keep forever.
So what I do all the time whenever I travel is I always have a foldable bag that's inside. That's useful for swag. It's also useful when your hand carry is like, you know, a little too heavy, and like you're gonna have to check it in when you take out the disposable bag, and you just check that in. Yeah, but what was really good for swag is that you get lots of stickers. So for the merge party in Singapore as well, what I did was I had too many stickers, and my laptop isn't big enough to fit all of them. So we had a sticker exchange as well. So that was pretty cool.
That is cool. Yeah. And if you attend our Ethereum trivia sessions, we'll be doing giveaways too. So for anyone listening, watching, that's going to be there, you can expect to get some stuff from us too, as long as you participate and are part of the trivia. Okay, well, thank you guys for joining. Appreciate your time and your love for Ethereum, obviously. And we will be back with a few live streams in October. Like I said, one's going to be Speedrun Ethereum. We're going to, and Growick, we're going to be talking with Paul Pui from Edge again about mining, which is going to be focused on Bitcoin. And also we'll talk a little bit about the Ethereum merge as well, how that relates. And we'll be back next month as well for another Ethereum live stream. So join us, follow us on socials if you don't already, and follow our committee members as well. They always have insightful, important information that they share too. So thank you for joining and appreciate everyone's time.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. See ya.
Thank you.